one freezing morning, I spied a strange figure waddling down Field Lane. A stout gentleman, all trussed up in a heavy surtout greatcoat, double-buttoned and wrapped at the front. His collar was up and a silk cravat tightly knotted at the front. He wore a flapping hat with its uncocked brim let down at the sides, an old bob wig covering his ears. A fat and ruddy face peeped out of this bundle and hailed me. "Bootblack Billy!" the rotund apparition called. "Just the fellow!" It was John Gay. He took my arm and we sauntered down towards Holborn Bridge. He explained that he was writing a poem about walking the streets of London. I could not help laughing, as this was some mad jest, for Gay was the least suited in temperament, inclination, why in his very body for such a physical pursuit. I always saw him as wilfully indolent, fond of inert pleasures. Yet he claimed to be serious. "Walking is an art, Billy," he told me. "It must be practised judiciously. You will note my careful preparations." He tapped his thick cane a pair of sturdy square-toed shoes with well-hammered soles and low heels. And I noted that he sported none of his habitual finery. His coat was a plain, close-knit kersey, with no embroidered flourish, nor lace trim. His hat unedged, his wig undressed. And in this manner he set out to discover our great city like some fearless explorer. "No coach or chair for me, Billy," he declared, prodding at the filthy cobbles. "Think what ancient shoreline we follow beneath this pavement. Only by walking can we truly understand the space we inhabit." "Just by walking?" I asked. "Yes, Billy. There is yet a science to it, and an art, of course. The art of walking the streets of London. That will be the rubric of my poem, but its title will be Trivia." Trivia? Yes, it has a double meaning. Well, triple one, I suppose. It does not refer only to that trinity of the lesser arts. No, it also means trivia, you see, a meeting of three roads. Trivia was the Roman goddess of the crossroads, and she will be my muse in space, Billy, and where the three streets of time converge, morning, day, and night. We had just reached Holborn Bridge, and he was already short of breath. I wondered this fancy of his was not just some ridiculous farce. It was hard to tell with Gay, as he was always joining the mundane with the classical in some vast, heroic satire. He panted steam and nodded down at the fleet ditch below. We looked into the black river that winds its filthy way through London and forms its main sewer. Part congealed by the cold, it churned with a lulling murmur. Its lazy current, fetid garbage lolled and bobbed. "Another goddess," sighed Gay. "No," I protested. "Yes, Cloacina. In Rome she presided over the Cloaca Maxima, the great drain of the eternal city, the goddess of the sewer. Here she guides the fleet." We crossed the bridge and followed the banks of the stream. "This tributary forms the very innards of the city," he went on. "The digestive tract, the guts, the fundament." Gay turned to me and smiled, saying, "Oh yes, Cloacina is a dirty goddess, and a lusty one." He conjured a story, as we walked, of how Cloacina, like many a classical deity, falls in love with a mortal boy. Emerging from her underworld in the form of a blackened cinder wench, she seduces him in a dark alley. In his tale, Gay contrived to make this son of man a humble bootblack, as the goddess of dirt would esteem his grimy looks as a sign of beauty. He was, of course, also directing her desire upon me, since he used my ancient nickname. And he in turn took the part of the goddess in the telling of it. I had long wondered if Gay was like Seraphina and loved to dress or become like a female, or if Cloacina was merely a maiden name, and he was one of those gentlemen I had sometimes made bargains with, who yearned to walk on the wild side of Burnville, and consort with rough boys of the street or shirtless youths of industry. But I never did find out whether he was a Molly or any other kind of cult. Some men hide it well, others deny it fiercely, even to themselves. But with Gay, the mask was itself. There was no dissembling, merely a happy vigilance and a delight in transformed sentiment. For some men, the greatest mystery in life is themselves. Through that winter, I walked with him as he began to compose his mock epic odyssey. There seemed no plan to how he mapped out his wanderings, as he chose to merge with the crowd at times and move with their urban flow, or leave it to chance as to which way he might turn. This was the modern experience, he told me, where every individual might enjoy the freedom of the city. Though the world takes so little notice of me, he soon complained, but so quickly worn out by our meanderings, I need not take much of it. Yet in space and time we travelled, around the 7 dials where 7 streets count the day, and from each other count the sun's circling ray. From there to Covent Garden, its cobbled piazza grouted with ice, where apprentice boys like furies played a warlike football game, the colonnade of the temple their goal. We crossed the hoary Thames, where the frost fair's tents formed a pitched encampment, a wintry army laying siege to the city from its icy plain. Here were booths and stalls, gingerbread sellers, ninepins playing, and great blazing fires where spitted oxen turned. Then, at night, I led him through the maze of courts around Drury Lane. We watched the jades that stood and worked the passing trade at that point where Catherine Street descends upon the Strand. I pointed out all the sharpers who might put the bite on the coals there, the files, the twangs, the giddy droppers. When it got late, I waited for the moment that he might make a bargain with me. He paid for my time and made me a gift of the first book of Pope's translation of Homer, but he would leave me at night with merely a brief embrace and a cheerful salutation. He once confided that he himself made something of a profession out of friendship. He had lately gained the patronage of the Earl of Burlington, who had built that great palace in Piccadilly. He encouraged me to continue to write and longed to hear my stories. He told me that Swift had written from Dublin, suggesting that Gay might write a Newgate pastoral, some epic set among the thieves and whores there. So he was keen to hear of the Canting Crew and the new thief taker. I often wonder why the talents of statesmanship seem so scarce in society, he mused, since those who truly possess them are every month cut off in their prime at the Old Bailey. As well as my meagre Grub Street work, I penned the occasional flash ballad, but I longed to write something more lofty and substantial, a great poem that came from the heart. Yet that part of me had grown hard and unyielding, and in wanting some fine emotion to inspire me, it was not the lack of feeling I possessed, but an excess of it. I had made bargains with so many men, finding some desire, but little satisfaction. All intimacy tempered with betrayal and suspicion. I knew somehow that true art must come from true love, but all I could muster was feigned sentiment